In your life, it's going to take courage to heal. Bad things happen to everyone, including you. You may feel like mostly you. Now, you have a choice. You can nurse it, relive it, ruminate on it. You can see every new day through the lens of a past trauma, allowing it to dominate your life, even define who you are. Psychologists call this a victim mentality. But a Christian mentality, a championship mentality, has courage at its core. And it takes courage, one step at a time, to heal and to walk out of the darkness and into the light where you are called to be. Welcome to the Salty Pastor Podcast. We are a teaching platform designed to coach you up in your faith. We are spiritual people. That basically means that we're souls, spiritual souls that have bodies. We are embodied, is what academics or scholars or researchers is the term that they use. And we're here to coach you up in your faith so that you can discover the nature of your soul and why it's thirsty and how to satisfy it. Now, our current focus right now is how to develop a Christian champion mindset in your own life. Specifically, we're talking about courage right now. And we're asking a very simple question, and that is this: what kind of mindset or attitude about life is your faith supposed to produce? In other words, if you become a person who follows Jesus Christ, what does that produce in your life in the way that you think, your attitude about life, the way you approach making decisions, your outlook on life, how you perceive what's happening in your life? What is your faith supposed to produce in regards to all of those things? Now, I think this is a really important question to ask yourself because it reveals something about you that you may not be aware of. It reveals to you your core beliefs, and not just any core beliefs. It reveals to you your core beliefs about who you are really. In other words, when you ask this question, it kind of helps you figure out, my goodness, this is what I actually believe about myself. Not what I think I believe about myself, or not what I tell myself, because we all know that we're experts at lying to ourselves. And so we're really good at that. And I mean, I've done that so many times I've lost count. It's just too many. So the question is that when I ask this question, it helps me look at myself from a different perspective, and it reveals to me what I believe about myself. The other thing it does is this question reveals to you your core beliefs about Jesus. That's right. When you say, okay, what is my faith supposed to produce in following him? What you do is you are kind of figuring out, my goodness, this is what I actually believe about Jesus. This is what originally attracted me to him and why I originally chose to follow him. And that's an important thing to know and have clear in your mind, okay? Now, the reason why this is such an important question to ask is because in order to grow, you always have to start with yourself. You see, when it comes to faith, your soul, right, the thing that drives you, you must start with what you believe about yourself. So when you ask this question and it kind of pulls that up, you start going, oh, okay, I clearly start to understand I believe some good things about me, and I believe some wrong things or misguided things or even bad things about who I am as a person. Next, what you do is you start evaluating your core beliefs about Jesus. In other words, who do I really believe he is? And not just, oh, is he the Son of God, like a doctrinal position? I mean something deeper than that, and that is, who is he in my life? I mean, seriously, who is he in my life? How do I actually perceive his influence in my life? Is there influence? Is there no influence? And that unveils a core value or a core belief that you have about Jesus. Because people who believe that Jesus has no influence in their life probably deep down inside believe that, well, he's not supposed to, or he's incapable of having any type of influence in my life. See, asking that question reveals what you really believe about Jesus. The other thing, too, is it does get you to start believing some or thinking about what you believe from a doctrinal position. I mean, who exactly is he? Is he who he said he was? I mean, is he actually the Son of God, or was he just a crazy person? I mean, think about it. You have to be pretty crazy to assert that you are the Son of God, go on trial for saying it, and then be executed because you wouldn't recant. I mean, it's either got to be true or you got to be crazy. But if he's crazy and it's not true, then how come he has had the most profound impact on all of humanity throughout history? I mean, his life is the most significant life in all of human history. There's a history professor at Harvard. Oh, I can't think of his name. Pelilikian. I can't remember his name. But he says that the life of Jesus, whether you believe anything he claimed not to be true or not, or whether you believe he's deity or not, doesn't matter, because his impact on history is unquestionably the most profound and most widespread than any life that has ever lived. It's really interesting. Tom Holland, who's one of the leading British historians, he's a very well-respected historian in Britain, and he wrote a book called Dominion, and he basically says that all the success of Western civilization is due to the influence of Jesus Christ, his life and Christianity, those who followed him. So, I mean, if he was a lunatic, then why did he have such powerful impact? So you got to ask yourself, who exactly is Jesus? And do I really believe that? Because if you really believe that, then you're going to come to the conclusion, not only can he have influence in my life, but he should have influence in my life. If you want to grow spiritually, if you really want to grow spiritually, you have to evaluate your core beliefs about Jesus. There's no way around it. I mean, you just have to come to some definitive position on Jesus. Finally, when you ask this question, it really pushes you to the point of clarifying the real reasons why you follow him, right? You need to clarify the goal that you hold on to for why you follow him. I mean, what is the value in developing your faith? Why do you follow Jesus? You see, lots of people have an underlying belief that the reason they follow Jesus is because they're supposed to. It's their obligation. Well, I'm supposed to do that because it's true, and I'm supposed to do that. Some people believe the value in following Jesus is because that's what their family did, and they don't want to disappoint their family. So they believe because their family believes. Some people believe it's because they needed to be a moral person. Well, your morals got to come from somewhere, and his morals aren't so bad, so I follow him because I'm supposed to be a more moral person. Some people believe the value in following Jesus is to be accepted culturally. Well, the majority of belief here is Christian, and you go out on a date or you're going out socializing, it comes up, you go, I'm a Christian, and you got a 60-70% chance of being around people that think and act and kind of come from the same position that you do. So a lot of people are culturally Christians because they don't want to stand out or be rejected in society. Some people believe that the value in following Jesus is that they want to be healed and made whole from maybe a past trauma or from the ravages of sin and evil in this world. Well, I mean, we're starting to get a little closer, right? Still others believe the value of following Jesus is about getting wealthy. That's a little further away. This is called the prosperity gospel, and it's very popular in America. I mean, you got televangelists flying around $20 million jets selling this to people, and people watch it constantly and are a part of it. Why do I bring this up? Because if you want a championship mindset, then you need to answer the simple question, why do I believe I should follow Jesus? Or what benefit is there in following Jesus? That is a really important question, because when you answer that question, the answer of why, you're answering the question of the why for your life. That's why it's such a big deal. When you answer the question of why for your life, this is why I am here, this is what my life means, this is why I exist. Now, only when you answer those questions, that specific question, can you have purpose and direction in life. It's what gives you strength. It's what gives you peace. That's why it's important to answer the question that we asked. And what was that question? Well, it's just a simple question. What kind of mindset or attitude about your life is your faith supposed to produce? Now, you might be asking, okay, Doug, we're into this podcast for 10 minutes and I thought it was on courage. So what does you just said have to do with courage? I mean, what is it? Well, I just gave you the definition of a courageous mindset. You see, the definition of courage is not what we are led to believe through media or often through cultural icons. We often believe courage is some great act of bravery, the guy who ran out into gunfire and pulled his buddies, to safety who were injured, or the guy who charged the machine gun nest to save his platoon, or the fireman who runs into the burning building and pulls out a child and saves their life. Well, these are courageous acts, but that is not courage. These are acts that come from courage. In reality, courage is a mindset that drives your everyday behavior and choices. And that mindset is built, it's formed, it's honed and sharpened by your core beliefs. You see, Patrick Henry, at the founding of our nation, said one of the most famous lines, "Give me liberty or give me death." It's considered one of the most courageous statements in American history. And today, 250 years later, almost 250 years later, everybody knows what I'm talking about. Well, this courageous statement came from a mindset built around his core beliefs. You see, what inspired him to commit the act of courage in that statement came from a courage mindset. And the courage mindset was built and formed around core beliefs. These core beliefs, we know what they are because they are articulated in the Declaration of Independence. And one of the things it says in there is that all men are created equal. They are endowed by the Creator with what? Unalienable rights, meaning you can never take this right away. It exists. It's beyond even the material realm or any power or authority here on earth. It's because it comes from God, our Creator. And it said what? The pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those three things. What's amazing about that to me is he says, look, because his core value is that this is God's ordered design, and these are things that drive us, then anything short of liberty is slavery. And I will not live as a slave. So give me liberty or give me death. Do you see how his core values drove this act of courage? On the day when the Allied soldiers stormed Normandy Beach, June 5th, June 6th, 1944, it's considered one of the greatest beach invasions of all time. The plan itself of assaulting and establishing a major beachhead in which to take the war to the Nazi regime and push them back was considered one of the most courageous plans ever devised by military leaders. Where did that come from? Well, it came from a mindset, right? And the mindset was based upon the core belief that the Allies had what it took to push back the Nazis. I think that's a fascinating thing. And this is why I'm always saying what you believe is one of the most important things about you, because those core beliefs, especially when you know them and you've affirmed them and clarified them, it transforms your life in ways you can never imagine, particularly when it comes to courage. When Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1964 and he said, "I have a dream that my children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." It's considered one of the most courageous statements embodying the civil rights movement and the hope of human aspiration for all of us to live together in peace and harmony. But where did that statement come from? Well, it came from his core beliefs. It came from a courageous mindset, and that was built on biblical core values. These core values he articulates very clearly in his letter from the Birmingham jail. Most people are very familiar with his "I have a dream" speech and that statement, but very few people have actually read the letter from the Birmingham jail that he wrote. And that's where he articulates his core values, his core beliefs, and how they ended up driving all of his courageous action. A lot of the reasons why Western civilization has survived today is because in 1683, the Polish prince Sobieski drove his troops across hundreds and hundreds of miles on an arduous, a painful march to Vienna. And he went there, and he got there on September 12th, right? And what he did is he arrived at Vienna because there was a massive Ottoman Empire, a Muslim invasion that had encamped around Vienna and was trying to besiege it and destroy it. When he showed up, he saw an overwhelming Muslim force, easily outnumbering him 2-1. However, when he had this battle on the 12th, he attacked and won, taking great risks, and he stopped once and for all the Islamic aggression into the West. Because the Islamic aggression specifically stated, when you go back and read the history prior to this, is that their goal was to destroy Vienna, then march to Rome and destroy Christianity so that they could take over. They wanted to destroy all of Western civilization. What's interesting is this battle happened and the Muslims lost on September 12th, 1683. This is why Osama bin Laden attacked on September 11th in 2001, because prior to the 12th, Islam considered itself unstoppable and unbeatable. So what caused Sobieski to make that courageous march, commit to a courageous defense, attack a superior force? I mean, it was just courage after courage after courage, or a courageous act over and over and over again. What caused him to do that? Well, he says why he did it. And you know what he says? Because God told him to. He said God told him that they're attempting to wipe out Christianity, and he could not stand and do nothing. You see, that's courage. And all of these statements in history of courage that we're familiar with come from a courageous mindset. And that mindset, as all of these historical situations prove, has to do with core beliefs and core values. So if you want a Christian mindset, a courageous mindset, then you're going to have to work on your core beliefs. And I'll tell you, it's the best work you'll ever do, because it takes courage to become the person that you're called to be. Remember what we read on Tuesday, a quote from E.E. Cummings, an American history poet. He says, "It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are." It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. You see, you can only experience who you are meant to be if you have the courage to grow up and become it. You know, in your life, it's going to take courage to heal. Bad things happen to everyone, including you. You may feel like mostly you. Now, you have a choice. You can nurse it, relive it, ruminate on it. You can see every new day through the lens of a past trauma, allowing it to dominate your life, even define who you are. Psychologists call this a victim mentality. But a Christian mentality, a championship mentality, has courage at its core. And it takes courage, one step at a time, to heal and to walk out of the darkness and into the light where you are called to be. My friend, it takes courage to enjoy what you have and to be thankful. You just have to look at the world in which you live, and you have to be thankful. No matter how bad your life is, you got to say, well, I have to be thankful, because 100 years ago, people didn't even have hot showers. There was no air conditioning 100 years ago. There were no antibiotics. People died of strep throat and basic bacterial infections all the time. Penicillin wasn't discovered until 1928. I mean, we are still 3 years away from the 100-year anniversary of the invention of antibiotics, which has dramatically reduced the infant mortality rate, because we can give antibiotics to kids and they don't die of basic bacterial infections. It's helped extend life beyond belief, because things that could kill you before don't anymore. Being thankful is an act of courage to look beyond the immediate things that are going poorly in your life, to say, man, I'm thankful that I live in the world that I live in today. Did you know that 150 years ago, there was no electric lighting at all? I mean, up until 150 years ago, you could not hit the switch and turn on the lights. You just couldn't do it. There's so much to be thankful for. And it takes courage to live a thankful life. You know, it takes courage to reach financial goals and to manage your money instead of letting your money manage you. The goals you have in life, everything that you want in life, is going to require financial management. It requires you to have financial gains, buying a house, getting married, having a family, raising kids, not being a burden to society or anyone else, enjoying experiences, investing and helping people and being generous. All of these things require financial gains. The biggest one of all, in my opinion, is living with self-respect. The one thing we don't talk about very much anymore is the capacity to live with self-respect. In other words, saying, I am proud that I am not a burden to anyone else, that I have my own self-respect. Remember the old E.F. Hutton commercials? You know, when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen, they'd always, suddenly grow silent in the restaurant or the store or wherever with the E.F. Hutton representative there. And he goes, we make money the old-fashioned way. We earn it. Man, the capacity to earn things is so important. One of the biggest issues in psychology today and parenting is the fact that kids have no self-esteem because they've never been required to earn anything. And psychologists are realizing, self-esteem comes when you earn it. My friends, the goals you have in life, all your financial goals, require you to live with courage, a willingness to go out, test your mettle, see what you're made of, and earn your own way. Now, there's no shortage of people out there telling you it can't be done. Don't waste your time. The American dream is dead. This is simply not true. It is a lie of the devil. It really is. It takes courage to ignore them and believe that you can do it. You can go out. You can earn your own way. You can reach your financial goals. It just requires you to courageously develop a championship mindset, and you can do it. If you want to improve in any area of your life, it requires courage. Why? Because you have to have discipline and consistency. And consistency, discipline are courageous behaviors. I don't know who this person is, but I read this quote on a wall. I don't know if it's an airport or somewhere. I can't even remember. It's by Marianne Radmacher. And the quote is, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow. You see, any improvement in your life requires discipline and consistency. Showing up tomorrow and doing it again. That is courageous behavior. Raising courageous or just good adult, having your kids grow, your children develop into productive members of society, people that you are honored to call children and friends, children you respect and respect you. It takes courage to raise good adults. And the reason why is the biggest act of courage you will do is just ignore every bit of parenting advice that's come from the world in the last 30 years, because it's all just a bunch of bunk. It's all worthless. And you see it every day, the failure of raising kids properly. And that is our society has said their feelings and their emotions are the most important thing, and your goal is to manage their feelings. And this is absolutely false. Your goal is to sharpen and develop their character, because it's their character that allows them what? To develop core beliefs and become courageous adults. You know, the need for courage today is more widespread than I could imagine. If you don't mind me ranting for just a bit, but our nation is literally going over a cliff. Only the courageous act and behavior of citizens are going to save it from fiscal ruin. Milton Friedman is becoming more popular right now because he talked about this extensively. He said the only way to know the real tax burden on citizens of a nation is to gauge the inflation rate. You see, tax revenues are only part of the tax you pay. The other part of your burden is you're paying for the inflation of the currency. In other words, the dilution of your purchasing power. So every year there's deficit spending, you pay for it in inflation. That's the real tax burden. And just because our nation has come up with a way to borrow from future generations to pay for what they're doing now is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. It's going to take courageous citizens to say, we need to get this back on track. We need some adults in the room. Right now, I don't know about you, but the debt right now is over $130,000 per U.S. citizen. You can't borrow your way out of that. You're going to have to cut spending. We're going to have to run spending surpluses and pay down the debt. It's what's true for nations is true for your family. And so it's going to take courage to do that. Your freedoms and liberties as a Christian in America today are slowly being eroded. COVID is a perfect example. Out of fear, the public school system in California required children to get a COVID vaccine, even when scientists knew there was no morbidity for children under age 18. It took courage for people to stand up and say, hey, let's slow this down a bit. But we actually threw out healthy 20-year-olds out of the military because they refused the vaccine. Now, if you want, my point isn't that the vaccine works or doesn't work. My point isn't that you should get it or not. It's highly efficacious for a massive demographic of our society, especially people over 50. It was, in a lot of ways, a miracle vaccine. That's not my point at all. But my point is this, is when you mandate it, when the science clearly shows it wasn't efficacious for people under 35 years of age, that's an erosion of your liberty. And yet that's exactly what our government did. Christian liberties have been under assault since the 60s. And unless we're courageous and we stand up and we push back in a polite, gentle, and reverent way, but firm and strong with spines of titanium, then we're just going to watch our liberties disappear. I love what the ambassador to Israel said, Mike Huckabee, one time. He says, at some point as a Christian, you have to stand up and say no to the people that hate Christianity and want to eradicate it from society. And he said, it just so happens to be that a lot of your government bureaucrats believe that. So we need to not in a provoking way, but in a strong way say, yeah, we're not going to allow you to take away our liberties. So I want to get practical right now. How do you develop a mindset of courage? I mean, if you want to be courageous and develop a mindset of courage, how do you do it? Well, you do it through faith. That's exactly right. Lao Tzu was kind of a philosopher from China. He said a lot of interesting things, but he said this, he said, being deeply loved by someone gives you strength, while loving someone gives you courage. Two things that I noticed here. Number one is that he says, when you're deeply loved, you gain strength. Well, when you are loved, deeply loved, you have the strength given to you by Jesus himself. In 1 John 3:1, it says, "See how great a love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we would be called children of God." It says, God demonstrates in Romans chapter 5, it says, God demonstrates his own love for us, and while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. You see, there is no greater love for you than the love of Jesus, and it runs deep, my friends. And so there is no more powerful love for you than his love, and that's why you can have strength. The other thing is, he says, when you love deeply, it gives you courage. You know where your courage comes from? The more you love Jesus back. That's right. The stronger your faith becomes, the more you love Jesus back, the greater your courage grows. So this is the victory that overcomes the world. It's our faith. If you want to develop a Christian champion mindset and see courageous mindset grow in your own life, then work on your core beliefs. My challenge for you this week is simply this, is take some time, whether in a quiet time, where you're having coffee or you're driving home from work or whatever, take some time and just ask yourself this simple question, and that is, what do I really believe about Jesus and his love for me? I mean, what is following him supposed to produce in my life? And why is that beneficial to me? I want you to think on those questions, and I want you to try to come up with an answer. Because remember, what I think the answer is for you is irrelevant. It's what you think and the conclusion you come to, because this is about your faith. And I'm here to coach you in your faith. So Salty Pastor signing off. If you could go to our website and sign up for the weekly email that we send out to try to inspire you, you go to our website, thesaltypastor.com. You can sign up for it right there. Also, go to our YouTube channel and like and subscribe. Our subscriber list is growing, and we want to keep that rolling, because as soon as we get over 1,000 subscribers, a really great thing. So call your friends, family, relatives, even your dog. If they have a YouTube account, go there and like and subscribe, because we need your help. And remember, as the Salty Pastor says, what you believe is one of the most important things about you.